Welcome to Driven, the Unscripted Success podcast, with your hosts, Mike Menino and Nariman Hamden, bringing you insights and stories on achieving personal, professional, and financial success.
Hi, everybody. It's Michael Menino, and welcome to Driven, Unscripted Success podcast. Today on the podcast, we're interviewing professionals who share their experience with you, the audience, and how they got to where they're at today, and zooming from the beautiful island. Oh, where are you at now? I'm sorry. You're in Naples?
Fort Myers, just north.
Fort Myers. Awesome. From the beautiful island of Fort Myers, Florida. Christin Collins. How are you doing, young lady?
I'm doing wonderful, Michael. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. Really do. This is an introduction that I've never said before. An interconnective wellness advocate. I've never heard of that job title, ever. You're going to have to explain that before you do anything else.
I love it. Well, when I was leaving corporate America and really wanting to step into my own work, which was feeling very unique to me, I really thought about how I had come to understand the interconnectivity of all things. And to be well, when we understand that it's all interconnected, it kind of calms us down and we're able to be well. And I want to advocate for that. So sarcastically, I said, I'm an interconnected well-being advocate. And then I thought, that sounds so much cooler than a CEO. So here we are.
That is a crazy cool title. I've been called a lot of things, nothing like that. And so tell me what you do and how you got there.
Yeah, sure. So I'm very blessed that I now get to spend my days working with, whether it's an individual, a corporation, a nonprofit, on understanding who they are and why they are and how they're connecting with one another, with their audience, with their customer, with their patient, whatever the case may be. So sometimes it's an hour conversation, and in one case, it's a 5-year relationship. But the thread is helping, whether it's an entity or an individual, understand who they are and why they are and how they can show up authentically in this craziness.
Nice. Very nice. Well, I like how you put the craziness in there. That's a great analogy. I love that. How are you connecting in this craziness?
Well, yeah, the understanding, right, of we each are having our own experience helps us to show up and be more curious about what's going on around us and to us and through us versus getting traumatized by it or stopped cold in our tracks.
Yeah, gotcha. That makes perfect sense. Yeah, people get stopped a lot. I'm sure have you had an experience like that? You got stopped and that's why you're doing what you're doing now?
100%, and just incredibly frustrated. I didn't understand because I thought, well, I'm seeing it, or this is my truth, therefore it is the truth. And so when I wasn't in alignment with someone around me, it drove me crazy because I'm like, what are you not getting here? This is the truth. And I was very blessed almost a decade ago now, where I had this amazing friend of mine who helped me understand that we are having different experiences because 90% of what we're processing is actually being processed by our subconscious mind. So we're filing it away before we actually really touch it. And so if everyone is doing that, then they're filing away stuff too, and being, the remainder of what's left behind looks different to everyone based on their neural pathways, based on their culture, based on their life experiences. And that
which one of those do you think is the most impactful?
I personally think that the neural pathways are the most impactful because they're formed by our upbringing and our development, aka our culture. So for women, it's about 18 that we fully develop our neural pathways. For men, it can be up to 33.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Oh, well, you're trying to say men aren't that mature?
No, I'm just telling you the stats.
I can say that.
I can say that
unequivocally say that because I have a bunch of friends that are still not mature at my age.
No, they're just developing. So imagine something that occurred when you were 8, and all of a sudden that is your neural pathway and you're having this experience. Well, what happened to you when you were 8 versus what happened to me obviously is different. It was very freeing once I got through the fear of that. Like how does community work? How do we all show up? But now when something's not in alignment with what I'm currently thinking is my truth, two things happen. One, I'm like, what am I not seeing? And two, maybe what are they seeing? And it's so empowering. It's so freeing.
Freeing is the word I like. I like that freeing part too. There's a lot of freedoms from your beliefs. Your beliefs keeps you trapped to whatever beliefs that you concrete in your own mind.
And how freeing it is that I don't have to be fearful because someone else has a different belief. I could be curious about it. I could be open to it. I could just understand that, theirs were built through the things we've already mentioned and other things as well. So I have found it very freeing.
Yeah, awesome. That's great. If someone listening to us wants to get better at what you do, what tips and tricks would you give them? What suggestions? What gold nuggets?
So if someone that is listening just absorbs what we just said, that's like 51%. That understanding.
You already spilled it before I asked the question.
I did by accident, but I love it because it's so freeing to understand that. So tips and tricks, now understanding that everyone's having a different experience. The first is breath, and it's just to breathe in that moment when you're noticing a difference or noticing a situation, and just breathe through it, and allow the experience of it, allow the emotions that come up with it, and pause with that and get curious about it. Obviously, if you're not physically safe, you're going to want to remove yourself, but that is really the only reason. So when I switch from being reactionary to prove my point, and I just allowed for that difference, and I allowed for the space of allowing that difference, all kinds of things opened up. So the tip is to breathe through it, get curious about it, exhale it out, don't react to it, and see what comes next.
Yeah, breath work. Here's someone said this statement a while ago, and it kind of hurts. So it's the first thing you do and the last thing you do. Nobody's ever taught you to do it. Breathe. That is the craziest concept in the world. It's the first thing you're going to do, and it's the last thing you're going to do, but nobody's ever taught you how to do it.
And to take a super practical example of this, one of the things I learned many decades ago from my amazing husband was the concept of, instead of firing off the reply email, right? I'm so mad and I'm going to fire it off. Type it or write it or do whatever, and then just pause. And then how many times, right? A month later, pause. A week later, a day later, you're like, wow, thank God I didn't send that, because now I have new information, or now I've calmed down, or now I'm going to be more professional, or now I'm going to be more understanding. So that breath work is, whether it's for 3 seconds or for 3 weeks, it's really helpful.
It helps me out a lot, and I've experienced a lot of it too. I'm claustrophobic, and you were talking about how you create with the neural pathways. My brother buried me up to my neck, and I couldn't move. And from then on, I was claustrophobic, right? And I was in an airplane one time, and someone came in the aisle. This person stood up, and then the top came down, and then the feeling of claustrophobic came in. And all I did was just sit there and breathe, just like you said. Just sit there and breathe, and then the feeling will dissipate. Someone said it can only last 20 seconds to 2 minutes or something like that. It's a very brief time that it can last. And I just waited, and I waited, and I waited, and it disappeared. And then we got the luggage out. I got up, that person left, and it just, it really dissipated. I know exactly what you're talking about. That experience identifies it perfectly. When you were talking about it, I got it 100%.
Love it. And I think too, when we're a culture that is very accustomed to getting out of discomfort. So we think taking an action just to get us out of the discomfort, whether in your scenario, your action is to jump up and run off the airplane if it was still at the gate, or run to the door in flight and try to open whatever you're going to try, right? You're being reactionary.
Right, exactly.
And we're a culture where if it doesn't immediately shift, I can't stand being uncomfortable. I have gotten very, very good at being uncomfortable.
Good. And you got to teach people how to do that too. A lot of people don't understand. So I work out 5 days a week. It's not comfortable.
Right.
None of it's comfortable.
Right.
But the benefits are exponential.
Right. Be
Yeah,
uncomfortable.
I agree with you. Yeah, be uncomfortable. Yeah, I like what you say, getting comfortable in the uncomfortable. That is awesome.
Thank you.
Got a couple more questions for you. So everybody has road bumps. What is one of the road bumps that you had, and how did you overcome it?
So understanding, this is a past decade understanding that I'm not here just to be happy. I wish that was the case, right? But life is going to hand you curveballs. And so it's, how do you navigate kind of down the middle? How do you navigate the hard stuff, the bumps, as you've described? How do you navigate even the sheer joy? What's interesting for me is that the roadblocks for me, or the bumps for me, actually came in the sheer joy, which I know that sounds like an oxymoron, but I had severe difficulty allowing the love to come in, and allowing the joy and love to come out of my heart. I had my heart very guarded. So a really big roadblock for me was only living my life from my conscious ego and my head, and ego and intellectually loving, or intellectually being in relationship, but no one was getting near this heart of mine. And so the biggest road bump I have worked on, and I can say I've made great progress, is to get out of my head, get into my heart, and really allow the vulnerability, not like mushy, gross, all over the place, but to be present with an open heart, even when I'm scared or uncomfortable. And that roadblock, which even right now, as I'm sharing my heart's going, it's exercising. It has been the most beautiful roadblock to overcome. And I'm creating and experiencing a completely different level of living that I am so grateful for.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, that's, your heart. The heart's a tough one. The head's easy. The heart's tough.
And that's where it's all at.
Yeah, that's where it's all at. That's where passion, that's where love, that's where everything is. Yeah. Someone told me Jesus came for the hearts, not the minds. That was important, because and then he told, this guy hurt my brain. He said afterwards, your brain is just a biological computer. Input, export. Whatever comes in, that's all export. It's your heart that decides where you go. And it's like, wow, that's pretty powerful.
Amazing.
That's pretty powerful. I agree. Yeah, it is amazing. I got a question, but I want to save this one for a little bit later. Let's save this one for a little bit later. But what does a day look like for you? Juggling work, life. What do you do? What's your start to finish? Do you have any tips and tricks on that?
Sure. So, and I don't know how many of your listeners are also a gypsy soul, but I am.
Gypsy soul. They're out there.
I am a gypsy soul, and I've lived my whole life just really seeking experiences, and preferably different experiences. So for me, my dream is that a day never looks the same as another day. I know for some people that makes their head and heart hurt, because they're like, no, I need regimen. I need scheduling, patterning. I do schedule. Yeah, for sure. And I do have to exercise discipline and schedule, but I'm scheduling the differences. So every day incorporates some time dedicated to me, to my personal development, my physical development, breathing, whatever, going for a walk, reading a book. So I time block me time, because what I found is that I was always the first one off the calendar. And, you can't show up in life vibrantly if you're not taking care of yourself. So connecting with myself is always scheduled. Secondarily, a big part of how I schedule my week or my month is I say a lot of no's. And I don't even explain why, but if it's not resonating for me, not just in my head and my heart, but in my gut, like this is a yes. I've really gotten good at saying no because I want my days clear so that I can be present and enjoy whatever it is that I said yes to. And then I have a couple different long-term clients that I get to work with. And then I have people like you who pop into my life and bring me such joy. But because I say no, I have the space in my calendar to say yes. I want to have a conversation about what drives unscripted success, because I think these tips and tools, I wish somebody had shared them with me concisely, along my journey, and they didn't. So now that I'm looking back and I'm like, wow, I used to say yes to everything and I never took care of myself. And I felt like I had to do that or should do that. That's not how I structure my life anymore. I say yes to what speaks to my three brains, my gut, my heart, and my head. I take good care of myself, and then I can show up vibrantly in my professional, personal, and spiritual life.
Nice. That's awesome. I like that. I think that's going to help out somebody, especially the gypsies.
My fellow gypsies.
Your fellow gypsies. How do you tackle learning and new things? What is your secrets to, there's a problem that comes up, I have to learn about it. What do you do? What's your tips and tricks on that?
Love that question.
And getting out, basically getting out of your comfort zone. This is basically getting out of it.
Sure. And I think there's two ways to approach this. And one was, so I love learning. I love learning if I love what I'm learning. If Correct. I'm curious about the subject, right? And I sometimes reading's the best way, sometimes having a conversation, sometimes watching a video. So that's not the problem, right? I think learning something that I'm not innately curious about or necessarily good at, I've come to this point in my journey where I'm really okay going, that doesn't interest me, or there are other people who are better at that I can ask to do that work, or have that learning or have that expertise. Not everyone can live their life, especially professionally, and pick and choose what they learn. I get that, but I found that wasting energy trying to learn something that I didn't care about and that I wasn't really gonna ever get good at, like technology example, not my jam.
Not your thing.
Not my jam. And I don't use that as a crutch. And occasionally I have to learn. But otherwise, I'm like, this isn't what I'm good at. And I have no interest in it. So I partner with other people, whether I pay them or whether I ask my husband to turn on the television, like what it is, but not beating myself up because I don't want to waste energy trying to learn something that isn't in alignment with me. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. In our businesses, we coach and teach people that work with your strengths and hire your weaknesses.
Exactly.
That right there. Right. I'm not. I learned technology because I like learning it, but I'm not going to be the guy that enters data. Data entry to me is insane. I will hire somebody that loves entering data. Right. We've got some properties that we do, and you got to load everything in there. You got to load, how much the expenses were, how much the expenses were each month, how much, and you have to track that stuff. That's not, somebody else tracks it and I look at it, and that's the best I can do.
So highest and best use of time, right? And assessing that. And so what I find in learning is because I'm spending time seeking and enjoying and getting excited about, then I'm much more apt to learn. I think the other thing that I find curious, I just had this conversation this week, when something crosses, when a book title crosses or a podcast crosses in a conversation, I firmly believe that it's like, that's something I should look into. Like, why did that book come up, or why did that podcast come up? And sometimes, occasionally, I'm like, no, I'm not feeling it. But most of the time, like right now, I'm reading 2 books at the same time. They both were in conversation and they're both blowing my mind. They're like exactly what I needed to hear right now.
That was one of my questions. Is there a book or podcast that's changed your outlook?
Oh, there's been so many. And I've actually written 2 books to try to support people.
What are the 2 books? Let's talk about those.
Oh, sure. My first book, which I wrote in the beginning of COVID, is called Her Phoenix Rising. And it was not starting out as writing a book. It was me literally reflecting on what the heck, like what the heck. And I started downloading really to heal myself. And it came into a book and I published it. I was a little uncertain as to, did I really want to share that? That was very personal and very raw. And people who read it, they would reach out and they were inspired to go deeper within themselves. So that brought me a lot of joy. And then that brought me to write a second book because I realized I was doing folks a disservice because I didn't have any guidance or any thoughts to follow. Once they got lit up and inspired, they're like, well, how did you do it? And I'm like, I have no idea how I did it. So I spent 2.5 years thinking about that. How did you do it? And I distilled the information, and so the second book is called Be Love. And that's an acronym. The B stands for breathe, by the way. And it's a pathway that people the pathway that people can use. And then it also offers the science behind it, experts who are way deeper down that lane than I am. So that was pretty life altering, and I'm really grateful that came through. But as far as podcasts, way back, maybe about 10 years ago, the Rich Roll podcast was one. I don't know if you've followed him at all, but he really with the health piece, and I started understanding health is lifestyle. Right. And then the mind body connection, and the guests that he had on were all over the place and very fabulous. So much so that my husband and I actually went on a retreat that Rich and his wife, Julie, hosted, where I spent a week immersed with them. So that was really, really powerful. And then book wise, there's so many, but because I love reading and I love listening to books. But I think Glennon Doyle's Untamed came through at a very punctual time for me, where she was just really connecting with her authenticity. And that's when I really got comfortable with connecting with mine.
Oh, good. That taught you how to do it?
It inspired me to do it. It wasn't, and she's much bolder, and she's in a different genre of what she's passionate about and what she shares than what I'm passionate about and what I share. But as I read it, I really was inspired by her, that she's just really connecting with who she is and why she is. And I thought I knew who I was and why I was. And I thought, I was living a great life, but I realized that my choices, my decisions, my drive was all based on what I thought I should be, not actually who I am. And so I've spent a long time unpacking who I think I should be. And I've gotten very comfortable in my own skin and very quiet in my own skin.
Gotcha. Well, comfortable is the key. That's awesome. And it probably wasn't an easy journey.
No. And it's a continuing journey, but I hope that when I do have the opportunity to share, that I'm not trying to speed up anybody's journey, but again, I wish that I had this information distilled instead of, what I went through, where I pieced it together over almost a decade now. It's been a very long journey.
Yeah. The journey of self-discovery never ends.
So true.
Right. Every time I think I know myself, I'm like, I thought
that was funny. I thought that was me.
I thought that was me. How many times you look at the mirror and you're like, why do you want that? You want that. I get you want that, but why? And you're asking yourself, and this is yourself. You should know that. There's a famous quote that's from 500 years before the Bible. Sun Tzu, The Art of War. Know your opponent as you know yourself. You need not fear 100 battles. The biggest problem with that statement is knowing yourself.
Mm-hmm. And thinking that the happiness is somewhere out there. The happiness is if I lose 10 pounds, or if my husband would stop doing this, or if I had more money, or if I had a different job title, or whatever, if that person would just go away. I would be so much happier. And I really have come.
That last one could be possible. There's some people that. Some people.
That's the hardest one.
Be like, It
I
is.
wouldn't
I
miss
agree
you at
wholeheartedly.
all. Oh my
There you
gosh. And
go.
now
There you
I
go.
look at that
There you
person
go.
and I'm like, what lesson am I learning from you? What is that interconnectedness? Why are we connected? And what is my lesson? Which is the hard, it's so hard.
Yeah, I like you were open and honest about it was a 10-year journey for yourself.
Mm,
Because a lot of people never find themselves. There's
I
those
don't.
people. Yeah. And the other part is they think they can do it in a minute, which is not even close to being possible. Sounds like things are going pretty good for you in your business. Looking forward to the future. Have you ever what's your tips and tricks on creating passive income? You ever done anything like that? How'd you do it?
Sure. So I think the book's a good example. And by the way,
Perfect.
yeah, and by the way, just JFYI, you do not retire on your book royalties as a
No,
self-published author. Uh,
no.
but I actually, being self-published is wonderful because then I own the intellectual property, which is fantastic. And so passive income comes in through that. And
Yes.
I will say, just the other day, all of a sudden I had a deposit in my account and it was sizably larger than what I'm used to. And I'm like, well, what is that? What was that check for? And I looked and it was the month's royalties from the books. And I'm like, what happened? Like, how did these, where did I do something? What happened? Honestly, Michael, I could not track any like podcast or speech or whatever. I don't know why that blip happened. And it's not even about the money that got me excited. It was that many people or that many books went out to the universe that I hope can help people. So for me, passive
There you
income
go.
for this, yeah, for me, passive income for the sake of passive income is not my jam. But if there's something that I can create that's out there and doesn't need me, right? And creates revenue, that's fantastic. But it's most fantastic because it helps people.
Yeah, that's true too. That is 100% true. Yeah, I like how, yeah, I agree with you 100%. I love helping people. That's kind of why we're doing the podcast.
Right?
Um, Wondering what you got planned. What's your next exciting plans? You did 2 books already, and what's your next plans for the next 6 to 12 months?
Mm. So this might be a funny answer, but I am planning on not planning. And these are the
Hmm.
conversations I have often. What I have learned is that when I'm busy planning in concrete from my conscious mind, I'm
Hmm.
negating the opening for other things that aren't even on my radar to show up. So I plan on being my authentic self and showing up in my day and, doing the best I can do. And I have things planned. I have meetings or I have vacations or, whatever. But my plan is to stay as open as possible to receive. And what has happened since I've started really living my life of being instead of doing is I'm attracting opportunities that sometimes move me to tears. I can't even believe that I have the opportunity because I wouldn't have ever dreamt it. I
Hmm.
never would have dreamt it. And I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. A friend shared a job posting from Instagram for a globally renowned institute that I've heard of, headquarters out of Virginia. And they were looking for someone to come do some work with them. And she shared the posting with me and she goes, "This is you." And I laughed. I'm like, gonna want little old me in Southwest Florida. And by the grace of God, I tossed my resume over to them. And long story short, 3 weeks later, I got the job.
Congratulations.
If I tried to plan that, I promise you that would have never been on my radar. So my plan is to show up in my life authentically, to keep my schedule as light as possible, to know who I am and why I am, and to allow the receiving that I'm attracting.
Nice. Beautiful. Well, listen, I can't thank you enough for what you've done. You've shared a lot of great insights. If anybody would want to get in touch with you, how would you recommend that? What would you try and say?
Sure. So I have a website, ChristinCollins.com. So feel free through there. You can reach out and touch in. I'm on LinkedIn and all the other socials, but I
Facebook,
definitely,
Instagram.
yes, I definitely
Awesome.
am wide open to supporting that alignment with authentic self and tips and tools for that. So feel free to touch in.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. And please do, if you'd like to talk to Christin, they should be absolutely awesome at understanding what we're talking about. That, yeah, I think I agree with you on everything. I couldn't find anything I disagreed with you on. Thank you very much for being on the show. We appreciate it. We'll let the audience take off, and we'll talk some more. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks for listening to Driven, the Unscripted Success Podcast. Want to share your story? Apply to be a guest at drivensuccesspodcast.com/guest.